Hello, 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 everyone, and good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for the annual SU Election Forums. My name is Carter Henry, and I'll be your host and facilitator for today. At this forum, we will meet our candidate running to be the SU VP Internal for the 2026-2027 academic year. Voting will take place from March 3rd to March 5th on your student center. Over the course of the next hour, I will be asking the candidate questions about who they are, what they stand for, and what they know about this position so far. Audience members who have questions may speak to the candidate after the forum is over from 1 to 2 p.m. at the tables towards the back. Today, I have an assistant with me who is going to help us keep our time. Thank you, Nina. Each question we ask will be having a time limit. Candidate, please keep your eyes open. The green paddle means that there are only 30 seconds remaining, and red means to stop, in which I will interrupt you. We will move on once the time is over. Are we ready to go, candidates? Well then, let's begin. Now, Abdu, please go ahead and tell us who you are and what your campaign is about.
My name is Abdu Negmeldin, and I'm running for VP Internal. My campaign primarily focuses on a few things, which has to do with increasing mental. My campaign primarily has to do with three things, which has to do with increasing mental health accessibility and the kinds of mental health tools that are available to students, as well as valuing student voices to make it easier for students to reach out to, student leaders, student union, to express their concerns and have their concerns heard. And finally, I think we need to do some things with the club's office to reduce its bureaucracy.
All right, well, thank you very much, Abdu. Now let's begin with round one. You'll have 2 minutes to answer each question, all right? Here we go. The VP internal role is the newest role among the executive, and you would be just the third student to hold the role. How would you describe this executive position to students you meet who don't know what it is and help them understand its importance within the SU?
So, even though the role is new, I would first describe it by saying that it is a combination of two previous executive roles, which would be the VP OpFi and VP Student Life. So the role primarily has to do with the finances of the student union in terms of like operational finances, and then it also has to do with student life on campus, like mental health and well-being.
All right. What would you say are top 3 concerns in relation to quality of life for students on our campus right now? State which one of these you plan to prioritize and how you will address the challenge.
Okay, so I'd start off by saying one of them would obviously be mental health resources. I'm told by a lot of students that there's too many wait lines in terms of like the wellness center and whatnot. Another one I'd say is some kind of lack of community and well-being and like feeling of belonging, which it kind of makes sense because we are a commuter campus, but I think there's an opportunity to increase that through clubs. And then the third one I would say is student spacing and overcrowding. As you see, like Mac Hall is almost crowded. If you come in between 10 to 6, there's barely going to be a spot for you to find to sit down. And the one I think I would prioritize most is mental health, because I think the wait lines issue is a pretty big one.
Moving on. International students have become a major issue on campus, with the cap limiting them to the anti-immigration rhetoric that has become unfortunately popular in Alberta. How do you think the VP Internal can support international students at the U of C?
Well, first off, I know there has been efforts in previous years to make an international students association. I would build onto that because I believe it would give them an opportunity to truly be heard and have their concerns heard by the student union and other leadership aspects of the university. And I would just ensure there's an open line of communication for international students to have their concerns heard and dealt with. They are a very integral part of our community, especially given how we're a diverse campus. So I would not want to get rid of that kind of diversity that we have.
On to the next question. The VP internal role is dynamic and involves negotiating contracts for third party businesses such as the vendors here in Mac Hall. If a space were to theoretically open up, what kind of vendor do you think should be prioritized in order to fill a gap in addressing student needs right now?
I think we need some kind of vendor that helps increase the kinds of cultural foods that we have. I'm told by many students, and this might just be a biased answer, that I personally too like. I'd want the shawarma place because shawarma's shawarma, man. The closest thing we have right now in Mac Hall is an Opa, and I would not classify that as anywhere near shawarma, really.
Well, thank you very much, Abdu. Do you believe your campaign goals are aligned with the university's indigenous strategy, Etapatope, and tell us how?
Yeah, I believe so. My campaign goals have to do with inclusivity and diversity. As one of them has to do with the International Students Association. That would definitely have to do with ensuring we stay as a diverse campus and that everyone is heard. And I just think overall it's pretty fitting with the goals.
In this position, you will be required to work independently but also collaboratively with the other executives as required. Where do you see the most opportunity for collaboration with your fellow execs?
I would say it would definitely be with the vice president academic because academics are kind of an internal position and are obviously a huge part of the university life and the student experience. So if there's any place for collaboration, it would definitely be with the VP academic on probably multiple fronts. But I'd also say it's not limited to the VP academic. It would also, you know, extend to the VP external when it comes to like student housing as an issue, because residency, that's part of VP internal, and also just like the president in general, because they tend to help out with other exec roles and kind of help oversee everything.
Moving on. There has been a lot of talk during this election about potentially cutting low impact events of the SU, and although there hasn't been concrete events named on the chopping block, it isn't a stretch to assume that many of them are within the VP internal portfolio. What do you think the events that the VP internal office is responsible for overseeing, what value do you think they have and they still bring to students, if any?
I think they have a lot of value. A lot of events like, pet therapy or the living room will, I'm told by a lot of students, and I've experienced it myself where, say, it's around midterm season, like the living room event, it helps reduce stress and, make students feel less overwhelmed by exam season. So I think these events are definitely important. And if some of them were to be caught, they would have to be caught for very good reason, and they would have to be truly low impact. So there would definitely, I'd say, it wouldn't just be let's cut this event and just cut it. There would have to be some kind of like research behind it as to the kind of impact it has, why it exists in the first place, and if it is worth cutting.
Now for the final question of round one. As we know, clubs are third party organizations. The VP internal oversees elements of the club's systems and works with the staff in the club's office to ensure our procedures are functioning effectively. However, students may reach out to you for additional support directly for their club, such as looking for exceptions to be made or to seek support with a challenge they may be facing operationally. Executives are at an arm's length from operational procedures, however, remain advocates for the students that they represent. How would you approach engaging with a club appropriately and discern when to refer them to the club's office or when to offer support?
Well, I'd say first and foremost, when in doubt, refer them to the club's office. But if I'd say maybe like if it's an issue that is recurring and not just one club or a few clubs have it, but maybe a lot of clubs have it, then that might incite, looking into the way the club's office works and if there's any room to, you know, fix or reduce some kind of bureaucracy there to ensure that this problem just doesn't happen to begin with for clubs. But in generally speaking, if a club is coming to an executive, from my experience, they're looking for an exception somewhere. So I should just refer them to the club's office and leave it at that.
Thank you, Abdu. Now moving on to round 2, the speed round, in which you will have a whiteboard where you will put your answer on that whiteboard. You'll have 30 seconds to answer, and once that 30 seconds is up, Nina will show us the red paddle, and you will have to show your answer, okay? All right. You'll have the time starting once I finish the question, all right? Excellent. Question 1. Name one SU program overseen by the VP Internal. Abdu, please reveal your answer. Out of the correct answers, the SU radio show on CJSW is correct, along with volunteer services and clubs. For the second question, name one SU committee or board the VP Internal sits on. You may reveal when you're ready as well. The correct answers are as follows: Operations and Finance, Quality Money, UGRC, Programs and Services Committee, Governance and Oversight Committee, or the Cabinet. Name one SU engagement event that the VP Internal generally supports and attends. The correct answers are as follows: the living room, sex week, stressless week, orientation, pet therapy, wellness Wednesdays, or clubs week. Name two SU businesses generating revenue in Mac Hall. Out of those answers, Mac Hall Concerts, The Den, Store, Bound and Copied, McEwen Conference, and Events are all correct. Name the two agreements that establish the rights, use, and management of McEwen Hall. The correct answers are the SRA Stakeholder Rights Agreement and the MUSA Management and Use of Space Agreement. Name one university leadership member that you meet with in regards to residents on campus. This can be the name or position. There are a few different correct answers. Those that are acceptable: Shane Royale, Director of Ancillary Services; Wilbert Arens, the Vice President of Finance, the CFO; or Brittany Walker Reed, Director of Residence Services. Now for round 3, in which you'll put your whiteboard away and you'll begin to have 2 minutes once again. The first point of your platform deals with mental health. And we know that the Wellness Center has been operating basically at capacity over the last few years with no relief in sight. The SU is constantly advocating to the university to improve the quality of life for both students and counselors. What new ideas do you have to increase the already existing advocacy on this issue?
Well, I think um, in terms of increasing the advocacy, perhaps we should get other groups of student leaders and just students in general to, you know, go to university admin or just like tell them or sign some kind of, maybe like a petition or something that shows them that it's not just maybe a few people saying that this is an issue, but rather like the entirety of campus thinks it's an issue. Because if we have, as students, we have strength in numbers. So if we use that kind of strength to show university admin that it's important for the wellness center to be given more resources, then hopefully that can have some kind of impact in the positive direction.
Moving on. We've seen at times throughout this past year clubs with different ideologies clash with each other. These clubs often come to the VP internal to try and get them to pass judgment or side with a club. Your job is to remain a neutral arbiter. What would you do in a situation where neither club has broken any rules, but you find yourself personally siding with one club over the other?
If neither club has broken any rules and I find myself personally siding with one club over the other, I would consider that some kind of conflict of interest, and I would likely refer the issues to someone else, maybe like another executive or someone else in the SU, to help handle that situation so that I make sure I'm not making a biased decision, and that would help perhaps the clubs that I am personally siding with.
On to the third question. One of the major issues that the VP internal will have to deal with moving forward into the next year is quality money, which has become quite the election issue for both the presidential race and you. What is your understanding of the quality money issue, and where would you like to see it go from here?
My understanding is that the university is kind of running around, not really fully comprehending how quality money works, and they're trying to replace it with a new kind of program that's not really similar at all. So it is obviously in my best interest and the students' best interest, based on what the university is trying to do, to try to advocate for quality money to remain as is or as close as possible to what it currently is. Because honestly, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And quality money is not broke. It's a very successful program, and I've only ever seen good come from it. And it would be a shame for it to be discontinued by the university.
Moving on. You've mentioned establishing an international students association in your platform, something that student leaders before you have also attempted. What needs to happen in order to properly establish this association, and how will you get it off of the ground?
I think we need to, honestly, from what I know from international students, a lot of them, or just students in general, the efforts for the International Student Association to be established aren't really well known by the people that it concerns the most. So I think first and foremost, there would need to be more communication with international students to make sure they're aware that this is an ongoing effort that we are trying to do. Because if they're on board with it and more people are aware of it, then it will be harder for whatever kind of red tapes exist to keep preventing it from coming to fruition.
On to the following question. Your role as a VP internal requires pushing for more sustainability issues, whether on campus or in residence. What are some feasible suggestions to improve sustainability that would not be too large of a financial burden on the university?
I think you have to start small. Sustainability is a huge issue and thing that obviously people are striving for nowadays, which is important because we only have one Earth. We don't want to destroy it. So you have to start with smaller things. Maybe like more reusable straws, not necessarily plastic straws. Because no one really likes them, but like those metal straws you can keep and then clean. Just small things like that, or just things around study spots, maybe in TFDL or in like math sciences. Just things that are small, not really that expensive, I hope, and would go a long way in terms of sustainability.
For the following question. When a candidate is running unopposed, it often feels like students should just cast yes because the result is inevitable. Can you make your pitch to students why you should be trusted with the responsibility of being their VP internal, even in an uncontested race?
I'm a student who's, I've been here 3 years. I've had my own struggles as a student. Mental health is personally something that I've struggled with, which is why it's a huge point of my campaign. I talk to a lot of students in general. Students like to tell me things. I've been looking into the VP internal role since September, even earlier. So I would say I'm pretty familiar with it, and I think it would be a bad situation, and students would miss out on not voting yes.
The VP internal is often asked to represent students at public events and speak on a variety of matters, such as at the Pride Flag raising event or the National Day of Remembrance and action on violence against women. Which of these or other issues do you feel the most connected to, and what message would you want to give students as the VPI?
Can you repeat the events that you listed there?
Pride Flag raising events, National Day of Remembrance, and action on violence against women or other issues.
I think all of these events are and other issues are very important, but based on what friends have experienced and what friends have told me other friends have experienced, I think action on violence against women is a very important topic to tackle down and to speak out about. Even though I'm a man, but it starts with everyone recognizing that this is an issue and that it needs to be solved. I've heard way too many stories of friends or friends of friends where they experience some kind of violence against women. It's very saddening and disheartening to hear or be able to do nothing about in some situations even.
For your final question, you'll be given 1 minute to make your final pitch. Tell us, why should the student body vote for you?
I think the student body should vote for me because I've talked to a lot of students. I know the issues that are most important and most dire. I know the things that need to be fixed really well, and I have a solid idea of how I can get them done. And I think students would really miss out if they do not elect me.
Thank you very much, Abdu. And thank you to everyone else for coming here to the SU election today. Remember to vote March 3rd to 5th online on your student center. These students will be representing you next year, so please ensure that you are using your voice to choose who those people are. And if you have any questions for the candidate, please address them at the back table over that way or reach out to them personally. Candidate platforms and information are available on the SU website. And we'll be back here tomorrow for the Presidential Forum. And thank you so very much for joining us.